Hello, tea family. How are you today? Welcome back to Nonna's Kitchen Secrets. Today, we're going to be chatting about a secret or two that not many tea lovers like to talk about. And it's not so much what we're putting in our teapots today as much as how we're getting other things to the teapot. So I'm trying to be a little bit not specific here. But we are really going to be talking about tea kettles today and water and other things. And believe it or not, you might be making your tea just fine. The tea that you're brewing may be amazing, but it might be not tasting the best because of a kettle or the water that you use. So we're going to get started with that. I'm going to say hello to everybody. Let me know what's in your cup today. What are you drinking? I know it is a nice day. And I will tell you, we have had some thunderstorms earlier. So we do have a backup internet. But, as always in Kansas, you never know what's going to happen. So we're going to try. And if we do get lost, we'll continue recording and get right back on everything as soon as we can. But I always like to put that out there, because if you heard that in the background, that's more thunder, even though there's sunshine outside. So we've got thunderstorms creeping around. I just figured I'd always give you a heads up when we've got that kind of funky weather, because it is tornado and storm season in Kansas. We just kind of get used to it out here where we really don't pay as much of attention. But I do have my backup internet on. So what are you drinking today? How was your week? Diane is drinking Aloha Breeze. That's amazing. All right. Well, we're going to start right now with me brewing some tea for me. All right. Now, I am going to be brewing this, and this is the third brew of my Serene Sunrise this morning. Thank you to my handy dandy assistant who brought this wonderful boiling water over. Now, this is a third brew, and Serene Sunrise is obviously a black tea with some cinnamon in it, just to smooth out the boldness of the black tea flavoring. It just smooths it out. It's still a very robust and highly caffeinated tea blend, but I love that little slight smoothness. Now, this, if my handy dandy assistant could give me 5 minutes on the clock, please. So that's one of the things is you'll see I am actually brewing it for the third time. I talk about this all the time, but when you have a higher quality of tea, you can do multiple brews. And so we always say 3 times, although I have lots of people in our tea family that brew it more than 3 times. And they're like, it's still good. It's still good. That is up to you. I just guarantee that the flavor is going to be really good all the way through that third brew. And so wherever you start for that first brew time for a black tea, that's 3 minutes. Each time you brew it, you're going to want to add a minute. Remember, the color is going to be lighter, but the flavor will be the same. And so this is my third brew of this for today, and therefore I need 5 minutes on the clock. So we're going to be talking about tea kettles and all sorts of things. In the comments or the chat, feel free to say hello, what you're drinking like Diane did, and also add in there what kind of tea kettle do you use to heat your water. I'm kind of interested to see what everybody uses. We all know that you see me using an electric tea kettle almost every time, but there are other ones that I use, so that's not the only thing I did. And hello to Stephanie. She's drinking an iced tea tonight. That I completely understand. It was a little warm out there today. We're starting to get a little bit closer towards summer weather, which is nice. But yeah, let me know, how do you brew your water? How do you heat your water? What kind of kettle do you use when you go to heat your water? I'm really interested to hear tonight. All right, and Stephanie has an electric tea kettle that sits on her counter. That is where mine sits too. Although I think it's going to get a new home. I might have talked the handy dandy assistant into building a special shelf so it can be up off my counter but have its own little area. But we'll see. I'm working on it. If it happens, it'll happen probably sometime this week. So And then let's see, Diane uses a stainless steel stovetop whistleblowing kettle, and that's awesome. So one of the fun things is my middle child just moved into a different apartment from one apartment to another, and she just bought her first like stovetop tea kettle, and she was super excited about it and had to wait a little extra. It wasn't like an Amazon next day kind of thing, because she found one that was absolutely identical to the one that we used to have. I don't even remember what happened to ours. I think ours got lost. The army movers lost it in a move, or it got damaged in an army move, and so we had to replace it. And but she found one exactly like what our original one looked like, and she got that because she's like, that's the kettle I grew up with. And so yes, so that's what. So it's funny because I had decided months ago that this was going to be the topic. We usually kind of know what the topics are about 3 to 4 months in advance, and it just so happened that she got her new tea kettle in, so I saw a picture of it. Super exciting. Yes, Stephanie, a tea shelf. I actually have 2 shelves. So I have an old microwave cart from back when the day before they got mounted on the walls. I had a microwave cart, and I turned it into a coffee and tea cart. And then above it, I have 2 shelves of tea stuff. But there's not enough room where it is to put the electric tea kettle. And since I do want to let my handy dandy assistant have his coffee area, although I don't understand why people drink coffee, I had my tea kettle on the counter, and now I'm thinking about getting another tea shelf just more for my tea kettle. Let's see what happens. See if we can convince him. And that's 5 minutes on the clock. All right, I'm going to take this out. And if you look in, this is very, very light in color, because remember, this is the 3rd brew, therefore it's going to be really light in color, but the flavor is going to absolutely be just what you would expect. So I'm going to take and pour it right into my cup. And I was working on multiple things earlier today. So the table that I have everything on is very much packed with things. So not a lot of room here today. But I'm going to say cheers. Sorry, and sunrise is always delicious. All right, we are going to actually get started. And like I said, we're going to be talking about tea kettles and the kettles that we use to heat water and water itself. So I'm going to really focus starting with water, because your tea is 98 to 90% water. If your water is not great, your tea is not going to be either. It doesn't matter if you go are paying, $1,000 an ounce. Are there teas out there that are $1,000 an ounce? Yes. I don't sell any of those teas because I don't buy any of those teas. My checkbook would say a heck no to that. It would say tilt, no way, rethink this, Lisa. But I have talked to you about like how when I traveled for my job, that I would forget and I would drink their city water, and it was full of chlorine and chemicals, and then it would come out in the tea. And so many times, unfortunately, I had to just dump the tea because it was not drinkable to me. So the first thing you need to think about is filtered water or spring water is best. You really want it clean, crisp. You don't want any minerals or chlorine or anything like that. You also want to avoid distilled water. So distilled water has like a flatness to it. And so you don't want to do that. If you are one of those people that, I have to use tap water, try letting it run until it's pretty cold. Just run that cold water for a little bit first and kind of move some of the stuff out of the faucet and the pipes before filling your kettle. That could help. But again, if you're drinking tap water and it's got a lot of chlorine or chemicals or things like that, we appreciate the fact that they're keeping the water clean for us, but it's not going to taste good in the tea. And then I also want to remind you of something that I said before that most people don't realize, but fresh cold water means that there's more oxygen in the water, which is going to allow more flavor to come into the tea and be infused by the tea leaves. Really try not to reboil old water. It will lose oxygen every time it's boiled, and it can make your tea taste like slightly metallic. So if you had that happen and you're using, I happen to have one over here, a non-stainless steel to go to cup, or a regular teacup that doesn't have metal in it, and you're still kind of getting that metallic taste, that could be why. It's also one of the reasons why I really like our tea kettle, because I can set how many cups. I do have a couple more cups in here, even though we just boiled it. And part of the reason for that is we are going to be doing some testing of a potential new flavor coming. It's a caffeine-free one. I've talked about it before, but we've gotten to the point where we're going to be doing some testing on it this evening. And so we're going to use that water. I really do try and use fresh water every time that I brew, and only brew enough for what I'm drinking. So there's just a little thing for you. You may have forgotten, or you may not have heard me say that before. But that's number one. So you really want to check that water. There are those that say water is life, and they are right, but there is life within the water as well. And we want that oxygen, and we want that clean crispness that doesn't have everything else, so that our tea can really bring out full flavor. Now, I have to say, pun intended, but tea kettles, they're really the unsung or unwhistled heroes. Okay, it was a bad joke, but I had to do a dad joke just for like a couple of people that really demand them. I promise you, I will be hearing a lot of dad jokes probably tomorrow evening, because I've got a friend that's coming over, and between he and my husband, there will be tons of really horrific dad jokes that will be said at the table. So, but the tea kettles, really, how you heat your water, they're not all created equal, and there's no one size fits all. And I know that most of us have one kettle. Some of us might have two kettles, but I typically heat my water in one of two ways, and that's okay. I just want you to consider some things, and so that's why I thought I would talk about it. So I want to start with the classic. And that is just like what I was talking. My daughter has one that's really similar. So when we went, I couldn't get it. But this is what so many people see. It's just a standard stovetop tea kettle. Now, mine happens to go with my pot and pan set that we got as a wedding gift years ago, that we're still using those pots and pans, because copper bottom Revereware never dies unless the movers kill it or lose it. But we use this, and especially if we go camping in the camper, we would use a typical stovetop camper, a kettle just like this, and it would whistle, and it tells you when it's boiling. Now, these are classic, heavy bottomed. They're durable. They can be really beautiful. They come in all sorts of colors nowadays. They really can fit whatever theme you have, and they're simple, and people know what they are. Now, this is a very U.S. type of kettle. These are not something that you will typically see as much in, say, Great Britain or the UK, because they're going to be more on the electric tea kettle side. That I had a friend that once said, was at their house, and she picked up the kettle. She's like, "Where do you plug it in?" And they're like, No, you put it on the stove." And they're like, No, you plug the kettle in. And so different areas will use different, but this is very classic for us. It is heavy duty, as you can tell by, it does have water in it, but it is heavy duty. It is there. It looks great. Not only is it kind of a timeless classic thing for us, but it holds heat well. You don't need electricity. Adds to the decor in your kitchen. Some of the cons with this, though, are there's no built-in temperature control. You kind of have, it's leading up to boiling. There are ways to tell without doing a temperature read. There are ways to tell about where you are temperature wise, depending on steam or different things like that. It is not unusual. These usually take longer to boil. If you really want precise measurements, you're going to need a separate thermometer. So really, these teapots are really great for what most people drink for tea, which are herbal blends and black teas. So if they love or someone who loves the ritual and they don't mind being a little more hands-on, your herbal and your black tea drinkers where boiling water is needed, it's super, super easy. The other ones that I would say are the other kind of tea kettle are electric tea kettles. And this is one I don't have an example of anymore. I had one at one point in time. And then we used it to make kettle in a cup at events. And yeah, it didn't get washed quick enough and kind of got wrecked. So we have to replace that one. But these are an electric tea kettle, but they're not going to have a temperature control. I want you to think about like the old hot pots that you were used to be allowed to take to college. Okay, I'm really dating myself. But something that's like, it's either going to boil the water or not, like our standard kettle, but it's faster because you're plugging it in. They are fast, they're simple, they're very budget friendly. They can be a little hot-headed in that, again, they're going to go right to the boil and they're going to try and go very, very quickly. And sometimes they almost overboil a little bit. They get there really, really quick. Diane, I love that you're still using that silver beerware set from 1986 because we got married in 1989 and just 3 years later. And I will tell you, I love that set. It's still my favorite set. We've had a couple of pieces that we've had to replace, like the tea kettle and one or two of the pans, but we will scour and pay the extra money to get the stuff so it still matches our set. It's still the best stuff. It's like the best.
They gave us ours.
Yeah, they gave us ours. Okay. So those tea kettles, they're electric, so they're going to be faster, which is great. And again, they're great for black teas. They're great for herbals. You've got a great quick boil. They're affordable. They're always going to make it to 212 degrees, but that is too hot for like a green tea or a white tea, even an oolong. There's no way to really control the water's heat, and you don't have all the cues that you would with a standard kitchen top kettle of looking at the steam and kind of hearing how it's boiling and things like that. So quickly, you're not gradually moving up where I can pay attention to some of the signs and determine, oh, it's about this temperature. These are really best for your black teas, your rooibos teas, herbal blends. If you kind of started on your tea journey or you're on a budget and you drink primarily black or herbal, these are good. One of the things I will say that is if you have one, try and let the water sit, and you wanted to make a green tea, try and let the water sit like 2 to 3 minutes, maybe even up to 5 minutes, depending on how sealed it is, before you pour it over a delicate tea. You can try and wait. And just like your stovetop, you're going to have to really kind of get an idea of the water. Yep, Stephanie. Well, hold that thought, Stephanie. You jumped in 30 seconds too early, but that's okay. I love that. Stephanie and I are just on the very same wavelength today. The exact same wavelength. Food, drinks, electric tea kettles, everything. Okay. This is the one that you see. And this is the one. This is Stephanie, don't be sorry. I think it's fun. I love it. I really feel like we're just on the same wavelength today. It's all good. It's all good. This is what I personally use. This is also what I really kind of recommend, similar to this kind of a one. It actually sits on a base, and let me go like this. And so I can hold it here, even though this just had boiling water in it. It's safe for me to touch, as you can see, and hold everything like that. I do have people periodically who will shoot me a message or an email and say, hey, my teapot broke or my tea kettle broke and I'm looking for a new one. Is there anything you recommend? And I'm always asking them some questions and different things. It was Stephanie. I thought it was hysterical and I couldn't figure out. So Stephanie and I brought the same dish to the same event today. And I went to open up and we packaged it the exact same way too, which was even funnier. So I went to take it out. I went to take the rolls out of the packet and they were all sliced like they should have been. And I went to like see if it was cut or not. And I was like, there's no chicken salad on here. What happened? That's weird. And I'm like, did Rich put it in? I thought he put it on there. You know, I got all confused. And then Stephanie went into the fridge and found the one that we brought, and we realized we both brought the exact same thing. I thought it was hysterical. Like I just think it was hysterical. I didn't hear anybody in the group complain. Both enjoyed both of them, so it worked for us. Okay. With the electric tea kettle, one of the things that I really like is this one has lots of different temperatures on it. You're going to get a much more precise control, and that's what I like. So if you have someone that is drinking green tea and then sometimes you're drinking a white tea, you know, or us, we're always making different kinds of tea or testing or just enjoying different kinds of tea. So what I do is I will use this as a guide, and that way I can set my kettle to boil, even if I set my kettle to whatever temperature, and I can walk in and start to get the tea ready or start to get my cup or anything like that. They typically have different settings. It says 165. It says delicate. I would put that around a white tea. I have a 175, which they say is white. Really, and then they have a 180 that's green. I would personally, a lot of times you'll hear me green teas, 175 to 180 on a green tea. So I don't always pay attention to what they say to use it for, but I do pay attention to what the temperature is because I like to keep my delicates or my white teas around 165. My green teas, sometimes I'll go with 175, sometimes I'll go with 180. Oolong around 195 is pretty good. You could even do 200, which is what they have here for water for coffee for a pour over type of a thing. And then they have boil for black teas and herbals and things like that. So those are all different ones. I really like the precise temperatures, and it is pretty quick. It doesn't take us very long with these. So if you're multitasking, which I'm almost always multitasking one way or another, if I'm trying to do other things, if I'm getting the tea ready, it is easy. Now it does take up some counter space unless you can talk your handy dandy assistant into building you a tea shelf, in which case it's not as much of a big deal. But these aren't really taking up a lot of space. I mean, it's big, but it's not that big. It's less than the coffee maker. So it doesn't take up, it doesn't even take up half of the space of the coffee maker. So, you're not talking tons of space on the counter. The other thing, though, is to consider that might be considered a con is these are a little bit more expensive than the less expensive boil or off electric tea kettles. And they're definitely going to be more expensive than your standard stovetop type of one. But they're really good for anyone who's enjoying a variety of teas. If you want to make sure you're brewing to the perfect temperature all the time and you don't want to have to figure out, that or stand over your kettle or anything like that, where you can kind of set it and then it's all set. If you want consistency in your temperatures and different things like that, then the way that I would say consider. Now, I go camping and I'm using a stovetop one, no problem. I've learned to look at, hey, I think that's about the right temperature for green because I've got about the steam's coming out like this, it's bubbling like this. Cues that I've learned over the years to look for. So like, do I still use the stovetop one? Absolutely, when I'm out or if that's what I'm bringing to wherever. Those are some of the things to think about. One of the things that I really like about these that other kettles don't have is it usually has a keep warm setting. Mine does. It'll keep my water a certain temperature for an hour. And that is great if I'm not going to have to run out of the house in the morning and I'm going to have more than one cup of tea. Then I'm not reboiling the water. I can put enough for both cups that I would be drinking in the kettle, brew it to that temperature, and then it just maintains that temperature. And then it has an auto shut off, which is, again, a nice thing. That way you don't boil out your tea. Now, have I boiled out tea and killed a kettle before? No, but it is possible to be done. Have I seen it done? Yes. But I won't mention that child's name or that person's name. Like, I'll be nice. But they're not the only ones who've done it. I've seen a lot of people who've had that kind of an issue before. They forgot, they ran out of water, they didn't realize it was still on, especially with like an electric stove when they don't see the flames and and they basically burn the bottom of their tea kettle. Now there is another type of kettle. This one you can get in all these different models, which is kind of why I'm talking about it a little separately. You can do it as a stovetop model. You can do it as a boil or on for boil or off, or even with temperature controls. And that one, I'm going to bring up a picture of something that they look like, and it's what we call a gooseneck kettle. These are often used for like pour overs for coffee, but tea lovers pay attention. These actually offer some amazing pouring control. So they're very precise, that you can do a very slow pour, which is really great for like a delicate white or green tea. A lot of times they're really beautiful, elegant. You can get them that have the temperature controlled. These are especially great for a glass teapot. So we talked about teapots before and how different teapots are really good for different teas. This one is really good when you're pouring into that glass teapot because you've got so much precise control and everything like that. I agree. I think they're amazing. I don't actually have one. And part of the reason why sometimes I don't have one is because I have to do it, I would need to get rid of one. I have a hard time giving up my tea kettles. Like I'll always have a stovetop tea kettle, like always. Because I can still brew tea when the electricity goes out, thankfully, because we have a wood stove and other options. And I have a gas range and oven. So I need to be able to make tea even if there's no electricity. And believe me, my handy dandy assistant will be drinking tea that day because he's going to want the caffeine since he wouldn't be able to make coffee with a coffee maker. But
I have that little coffee.
but he does have a mocha. Okay, I think it's a mocha. It's an Italian coffee maker that's very stovetop-y. But they are great. I can't justify it right now. So, but they are very beautiful. They're very elegant. They have like this really cool line to them. Now, they typically, for cons, they have a smaller volume because they're very much into only having a small bit in there and then the beautiful pouring spout and everything like that. They are very much pricier, but they are good for like a green or a white tea, a blooming tea, if they've got the temperature controls. If you're trying to do a really fancy pours, man, that's what you're going to want, especially if you are brewing per cup. So if you were at a tea party or you had a bunch of your friends hanging out around you and everybody's drinking tea and you're trying to pour it into the cup, I'm going to get really close and I'll just accidentally pour some more for myself while I'm talking about this, of course. But like, I'm pretty close. I don't want to waste the tea and, pour it, but you can get really fancy pouring. They're really fun that way. And it's a really great tea kettle to have for those purposes. But a lot of times people will get them for pour overs for coffee, but I did want to bring them up because they are a great asset to tea. Now, this is where you want to kind of, we've been talking about this, is matching your tea to the tea kettle. Use what you've got. But keep in mind different things like that. And, we're always talking about the secrets here, like this tea kettle can help you with this or different things like that. But I do that so that you're aware. And if you're thinking about it, or if you have to replace a tea kettle, or you have a situation where you're getting a second tea kettle, I want you to have the information. So if I was going to match some tea blends that we have to tea kettles, let's start with Summer Kiss, because Summer Kiss is now available. I am going to definitely want something that is an electric tea kettle, but with these, with the temperature control, because I'm going to want to come in for that green tea, like I said, between 175 and 180. If I was going to do Maiden's Blush.
Here's how I boil water.
Okay, I will take this for a second. I talked to Copper Bottom Reviewer. If I was going to do Maiden's Blush, which is a rooibos and rose petal, which is really nice when you brew it up, and then you add, you're going to add sugar to it. You would add it then when it's warm and then let it cool. That is an amazing afternoon sipping tea, especially without the caffeine. You could go with a basic electric or even a stovetop, because it's just a straight boiling. If we were doing something like a blossoming tea or something really fancy like one of our white teas, even our lemon zinger, which is the green tea, ginger, and lemon zest, I might do something really fancy and do like the gooseneck and put it in a clear. I would probably take like a I would probably take an herbal and then do it like a glass bottle or a glass tea kettle teapot. That might be fine. Serene Sunrise, you could use any of them because it's 200 and you're boiling it. So you just kind of fit those things. Now, I did say tea kettles, right? And then my handy dandy assistant brought me a piece of Copper Bottom Reviewware, and you can tell this is well loved. It has been used. Yet you can thank the movers or us. I don't remember who put that dent in it, but it still works great. And here's the thing. This would still work great if I was getting water ready for tea too. Because I can pour fresh water in here, and I can put the cover on this, and I can do it over the stovetop, and then I can watch it. And if you look at the size of the bubbles, the way the steam comes off, and different things like that, there's an easy way to tell what the temperature is. And so I can brew water from this regular saucepan for any temperature. It just doesn't look as fancy, and it's not as fun. But you can still use it. And you'll still get really good temperature control with that. So I wanted to kind of talk about that. I wanted to talk about tea kettles because not everybody thinks about different things. And I have been getting a few questions. I've had a few people lately ask about what kind of tea kettle I use and what kind of tea kettles I recommend. I don't really recommend any specifically, you have to have this one. It's more a matter of what do you drink for tea? What do you like? Do you like having it on the stovetop? Do you like having it out there? I like having my tea kettle on my stovetop. That's what a stovetop is supposed to have. It's a sense of home for me. So those kind of things. But I just want you to think about those kind of things. And if you have to come to a new one, then think, well, do I need this? Am I starting to drink a little more white tea and green tea? Do I want something like this where I can control the temperature a little bit better? That's always great. I do like this one because I can put it down. So there's things to look for when you're talking about that. But remember that tea kettle, getting that water to the right temperature and then using that fresh water is perfect. And it will really help out completely. So any questions? Anybody have any questions for me tonight, this evening? All right. Now, next week is Father's Day. We will be here. It won't be a super long show. We are going to be making a manly tea for Father's Day. We're making a manly tea. That's what I was told earlier. But what it is our big question and answers next week. So feel free to send those in, message me or send me an email, shoot me a text, whatever. But if I don't see any questions coming in unless you do. All right, and I will let you know, I will update you on Highland Dawn. So what we have done is we've had enough people try and convince me to go permanent. So at our next few farmers markets and events, we're going to be sampling it. It won't be for sale, but we're sampling it and we're getting people to vote yay or nay whether it should come for our line. And I have to say that on Saturday when we were at the farmers market, it was a yay. We should keep it. So right now the yays are ahead. But if you're going to be local or if you wanted to try some, let us know. If you're local, I'll let you know where we're going to be, and then you can vote. Well, we're going to do this for a couple of weeks, get to it, and then we will make our final decision. So that is where we are with the Highland Dawn. It's kind of hard when your handy dandy assistant is pushing. He's as pushy about it as a couple of my friends are right now. So
It's good.
I mean, I appreciate that. All right. So one of the things I'm going to do is say thanks, everybody, for joining me. I hope you had fun and learned a little bit about tea kettles and boiling the water. And I will see you all next week for our question and answer. Have a great one, everybody.